All right. And now, Steve, if you can sort through this secondary, wow, give it a go. Let me ask this question, because I've been wanting to ask this question for like 3 weeks, and I've got only about 3 more months to ask it. So I guess I don't have to ask it right now, but I've already started. Can you guys think of a time in which there was less productivity, less confidence in a secondary, meaning that, okay, is Sevyn Banks, is he the best player or the most proven player in this secondary right now? Is that pretty reasonable to say that?
Well, that's not coming off injury. I mean, where does Cameron Brown fit into the situation?
When is the last time that we had a situation where we looked at the secondary and really there were no certain all Big Ten type players coming back? I can't remember when this was. This secondary is still just a big wild card.
Maybe 2016, which happened to be maybe their end up being the best secondary in Ohio State history, where I think the only returning starter was Garyon Conley, and maybe Damon Webb was a starting strong safety there. But you bring in Malik Hooker, and his first year as a starter was amazing, and you had Denzel Ward and Marshawn Lattimore were two other guys added into that mix. Ward was a freshman in 2015, and Lattimore, I believe, was maybe a nickelback at times when he wasn't hurt. So, like, you had some new guys that were thrown in there, and they all performed spectacularly. I don't know that I could put this 2021 group up there with that, though.
Yeah, I agree with what he's saying. There have been some times when they've been decimated by guys leaving for the NFL. And graduating and those kind of things. And you've just kind of been scratching your head like, okay, who's next up on this list? But at the same time, you always thought, well, man, we've at least seen some snippets of what these guys can do as backups. And we know they're going to be, outstanding players as they move into starting roles. We don't really know that this year. And, Sevyn Banks is back, and he started last year. Marcus Williamson is back as the slot corner, but he could very easily lose that job, to Lathan Ransom or, somebody else going into the start of the season. So I think that's definitely within the realm of possibility. They got to be hoping above hope that Cameron Brown comes back. I mean, as I kind of looked at it, I had Banks, Brown, and Williamson as the starters, and Williamson was kind of bracketed with Ransom at that third spot. And then I had Tyreek Johnson in my second team, and when my first draft of this came out, and he left the team. So then I put Ryan Watts in there, Cameron Martinez. LaJohn Cavazos was expected to make a move, and he really wasn't available much in the spring. And then I had DeMario McCall, a super senior who moved over from wide receiver, and Denzel Burke, a true freshman who was there this spring. I had them kind of in the running as well, third team, I guess. And then Jordan Hancock and Ja'Kalen Johnson are coming in this summer. So that kind of ties up the cornerback position. And then over at safety, Josh Proctor, returning starter. Okay, not great, not bad. Okay, probably going to be much better in the second year with Marcus Hooker, who was suspended this spring because of the DUI arrest, and Bryson Shaw kind of bracketed behind him. Shaw's a sophomore. We still don't know enough about Court Williams, redshirt freshman. He's been banged up. Jansen Dunn was a true freshman. He was there. And then a couple of incoming freshmen, Jalen Johnson and Andre Turrentine, coming in as well. So, I think it's a lot of unknowns, but kind of rebuilt the depth, I guess, with some of those young guys coming in. So many young players that they need to sink their teeth into and get some seasoning into. And the production, as we said with the linebacker group, has to be 100% better, or the defense could again be a liability, I think, in 2021.
I know, talking to Ryan Day this spring, they're much more comfortable with their numbers and their guys than they were at the end of the last season and through much of the season, when the guys were too young and they didn't have the opportunity to practice and get better. That's not been the case this year, so that has certainly helped. I know they feel good about Ryan Watts, but I mean, he's a rarity. He's a 6'3" corner, a 6'3", 200-pound corner. So let's see if he can actually do that. And if he can, then he's one of about, I don't know, 10 in the history of football maybe that can do it. So we'll see. Sevyn Banks, I think he's going to be fine. Just based on the history of if you're a starting cornerback at Ohio State, you're generally fine. And in year 2, you're even better. And I still go back to the times when Buckeye fans were upset that Damon Arnett returned. And he went pro and then decided to come back, and Buckeye fans were upset, and he turned himself into an outstanding corner in his final season and a first-rounder. And so, yeah, the second corner, like I have no idea what to expect from Cameron Brown coming back from the Achilles. I don't think you can expect him to be 100%. And if he is, that's great, and you fooled us. But we've seen, I guess, based on, and this is a terrible comparison, I guess, but maybe based on what we've seen from Tough Borland and Master Teague coming back from that injury, you're better a year after and the year after that. And so now you're asking Cam Brown to be, before he was injured, he was arguably the fastest player on the team. Where is he now in terms of not even just the speed, but the turning and the cutting and the keeping up with guys? He was in the slot last year, and can he still do that, or is he an outside guy? And then can Josh Proctor hold up as the free safety? It was an underrated situation last year, replacing Jordan Fuller. I don't think people realized how important it was to find somebody who could do that. And you saw that they didn't have that last year. And you look, it's not a coincidence that the Ohio State pass defense was bad last year because they didn't have somebody like Jordan Fuller. Of course, they didn't have somebody like Chase Young either, but they had no last line of defense to handle that. And Josh Proctor has played that position, didn't do much of it last year. Can he handle that this year? I think they can do the other stuff well enough. I just, and this is what they brought Josh Proctor to Ohio State to be. And he has been compared to Malik Hooker by Damon Arnett, for instance. And will he be that this year? I don't think you need to be Malik Hooker. I keep saying if you could just be somewhere between Jordan Fuller and Malik Hooker, that's plenty good. And if Jordan Fuller is the low side of that, if you can just reach that ceiling floor, then I think this defense will be fine, and you can find other pieces to handle the slot corner / cover safety, which I know they love Lathan Ransom. So there's more options, and I still won't be surprised, Kevin, if Ja'Kalen Johnson or Jordan Hancock get some starts this year at corner.
Yeah, I'm a big supporter of J.K. Johnson, Ja'Kalen Johnson getting a lot of snaps this year. Not so much because other guys aren't worthy of it. I just think he's really good. And I think that once he gets the opportunity to get into the system and show some things, I think that talent is talent, and it's going to be hard to keep him off the field. I'll save everybody from me going back and reciting the same names that Steve and Tony have gone through and said, what's going to make the secondary better is going to be the defensive line getting there 0.3, 0.5 seconds quicker, doing some things there that, I don't mean to lay this at the feet of the defensive line because that's not fair, but probably not as disruptive of a defensive line as we've seen in a lot of these past years too. We look at 16 when they bring in, a lot of young guys or whatever, or guys that hadn't had an opportunity. Marshawn Lattimore, when you talk about him, when he came out of Glenville, I thought Eric Smith, his teammate, I thought Eric Smith was going to be the guy and not Lattimore. But I think if you get a little bit more out of the defensive line, that always is going to make the secondary better. Because if you let guys run around out there indefinitely because you can't get to the quarterback, I don't care if you've got Deion Sanders and Leon Sandcastle out there for those who enjoy those commercials. It doesn't matter. Guys are eventually going to get open. I understand that you do have coverage sacks, but a lot of times a lot of that is more scheming than just being able to lock guys down and whatnot. So if that defensive line play just takes even a 15, 20% increase, we're not even going to be talking about the defensive backfield as a concern. But until then, I know people are plenty concerned.
Yeah, and there's a lot of talk about that this spring, just getting to the quarterback. Just the little things they can do to get that split second out of them. And I know expectations are very high for Tyreek Smith and Zach Harrison. Kevin, you mentioned Eric Smith. I thought I go back to that all of the Army game that year. You know, he was expected to be a safety at Ohio State. They throw him in a corner, and he shuts everybody down. Was better than Marshawn Lattimore. Then gets to Ohio State as a future star at safety, but just couldn't stay healthy. And since then, not much has come from Glenville.
No, Glenville's dry. I certainly have heard stories in terms of people will say, oh, Glenville, you know, Glenville's doing this or Glenville's not doing that. When it was on its decline a little bit, people thought that Glenville wasn't bringing out its best kids to certain camps, and those were the best kids. And, you know, you can really kind of get into whether it's the population shifts or when Teddy got sick, and, you know, because a lot of kids from other schools were kind of feeding in there. But I don't think it's as much that, because Cleveland's dry right now. There's just not a lot. I mean, the top talent from the state of Ohio is coming from, you know, Southwest Ohio, from Central Ohio. I mean, when Marysville has more kids than Cleveland, I mean, you know, it just kind of shows that something's afoot right now. And, you know, could Cleveland bounce back? Sure. You just never know what's going to happen there. But I think that as we're seeing states like North Carolina bounce up, you know, Tennessee, especially the Nashville area, I think some of that's the population shifts of people moving to where the jobs are, where the industry is, and you just have some areas. I'll liken it to Western PA. Western PA used to be as fertile of a recruiting ground as anywhere. We really don't talk about a lot of Western PA kids anymore.
Like, you got more guys in Pickerington than you do coming out of Cleveland.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I can't go anywhere without seeing somebody's like, oh, that guy obviously plays football. I mean, it's ridiculous.